Welcome to AtomNationHQ. In today's explainer, we're looking at a reality that feels completely pulled out of a sci-fi blockbuster. You might think microscopic medical technology is still decades away, but the era of the microscopic surgeon is officially here, like right now. In fact, billions of people have already had a form of nanotechnology injected into their bodies. And currently, scientists are actually injecting guided nanorobots into humans to actively hunt down tumors. We're even watching the birth of a massive, modern-day space race, but instead of aiming for the moon, the destination is the human brain. So grab a coffee, get comfortable, and let's explore how the crazy future of medicine is already happening.
Okay, let's kick this off with a pretty wild question. Would you let a doctor inject robots into your bloodstream? If a doctor walked into the room with a syringe and said, "Hey, I'm just going to inject these tiny robots into your arm," your first instinct would probably be to run right out the door. But here is the punchline. You've probably already made your choice. You might actually have a form of this technology functioning inside you right this very second. Just look at this massive number. We're talking about over 13 billion globally. Over 13 billion doses of the COVID-19 vaccines have been administered around the world, and in 2021 alone, we hit 3 billion. Here's the fascinating secret about those shots. They relied heavily on tiny lipid nanoparticles to protect and deliver their mRNA payload. These are essentially microscopic, self-assembling fatty bubbles. Without that incredibly precise nanoscale engineering, the mRNA would just break down in your body before it could even do its job. So if you got one of those shots, you actually participated in the very first mass deployment of medical nanotechnology in human history. How wild is that?
Section 1. Sci-fi becomes science fact.
Obviously, this huge leap didn't just happen overnight. The whole idea traces all the way back to 1959, when the legendary physicist Richard Feynman gave this famous talk called "There's Plenty of Room at the Bottom." He proposed a mind-blowing concept. What if we could just swallow the surgeon? By 1966, pop culture totally grabbed hold of this, with the movie Fantastic Voyage, where a submarine crew is literally shrunk down to microscopic size to fix a scientist's brain. Fast forward to 1986, and K. Eric Drexler publishes his groundbreaking book, Engines of Creation, laying out the exact theory for molecular machines that could build things atom by atom. And finally, theory became practice in 1995, when the FDA approved Doxil, the very first drug to use a tiny fatty bubble to deliver cancer medication directly to tumors.
Now, Richard Feynman knew he couldn't just magically shrink a submarine like they did in the movies, but he knew we could absolutely engineer our way down to the nanoscale. His concept was brilliant. Imagine building a set of tiny, remote-controlled robotic hands that are, say, 1/4 the size of normal hands. Then, you use those smaller hands to build another set of tools that are 1/16 the size. You just keep scaling the tools down, step by step, until you are successfully operating at the atomic level. It was a theoretical roadmap that perfectly predicted the engineering we're using today.
Section 2. Programmable DNA and bionauts.
Okay, so we've moved way past just basic fatty bubbles. Back in 2012, researchers at Harvard achieved something completely unbelievable. They created a logic-gated nanorobot. They literally took strands of DNA and folded them into 3D shapes. And this wasn't just an empty container. It acted like a tiny computer using AND logic gates, meaning the nanorobot would only open its payload doors if it detected two specific signals on the outside of a cell at the exact same time, kind of like needing two separate keys to open a nuclear launch safe. Then in 2018, researchers from Arizona State University in China successfully programmed DNA robots to actively seek out and starve tumors by literally cutting off their blood supply while leaving healthy cells completely alone. But wait, how do you actually steer a tiny machine through the incredibly complex human body? Well, back in 2016, researchers in Montreal experimented with using magnetotactic bacteria as living motors. They figured out they could use magnetic fields to literally push these biological machines around. Building on concepts exactly like that, companies like Bionaut Labs have now engineered a brilliant, clean, and non-invasive method. First, they introduce a microrobot into the spinal fluid using a standard needle. Then, instead of trying to cram a bulky motor onto the robot itself, they use an external magnetic propulsion system. By moving powerful magnets on the outside of the patient's body, doctors can remotely drive the microrobot along complex 3D paths deep inside the tissue. It's like a remote-controlled car inside you.
And the so what here is absolutely massive. We're talking about targeting severe conditions like brainstem gliomas, Parkinson's disease, and Huntington's disease. These are terrible illnesses hidden deep within the brain and nervous system, where traditional surgery is incredibly risky, if not impossible. By sending a magnetically guided microrobot, doctors can deliver drugs locally right to the source, but the applications go far beyond the brain. Scientists are currently developing nanorobots designed to operate delicately inside the human eye, and they're even engineering micromachines that can recruit your body's own immune system to fight these conditions exactly where the disease lives.
Section 3. Interfacing with the brain.
We are literally living through a new space race, but the frontier is the human mind. You've likely heard of Neuralink, which is running the PRIME study. They've developed a wireless brain-computer interface, or BCI, to restore autonomy to people living with severe paralysis. So far, 3 absolute pioneers, Noland, Alex, and Brad, have received this cosmetically invisible implant under their skull, letting them control cursors on a screen with just their thoughts. But Neuralink is definitely not alone. While Neuralink is taking the bold, invasive route of implanting directly under the skull, their main competitor, a company called Synchron, is taking a super elegant backdoor approach. Synchron places a stent right through the blood vessels, meaning they can interface with the brain without requiring any open brain surgery at all. It's a massive, high-stakes competition.
Let's look at the real-world impact. Nolan suffered a spinal cord injury, leaving him paralyzed below the shoulders. Before his implant, he relied on an exhausting mouth stick just to tap his tablet. Now, he literally just thinks about moving the cursor. He works, he studies, and he even played the strategy game Polytopia during a 72-hour live stream online. At the exact same time, Synchron is achieving its own massive milestones, allowing ALS patients to successfully send text messages using nothing but their thoughts. This fierce competition is pushing the boundaries of what is possible every single day.
Then you've got Alex, a former mechanic who totally lost his creative outlet to paralysis. With his implant, Alex is actually back to creating. He's using computer-aided design software to build physical 3D objects, like a custom latch for a gate on his farm. Even cooler, he's participating in the Convoy study, using his brain implant to control an actual physical assistive robotic arm. And it's worth noting, this massive leap in both digital and physical interaction isn't happening in a vacuum. It is heavily fueled by deep-pocketed DARPA programs like in vivo nanoplatforms and Electrex, which have essentially funded the bedrock of this entire incredible industry.
And Brad's story is just wow. Brad has ALS, which progressed to the point where he could only move his eyes and the corners of his mouth. He used to rely on an eye-tracking camera to type out words, but those trackers need very specific lighting to work. If it was too bright or if he went outside, the camera failed. It essentially trapped him in a dark room with the blinds drawn. His implant completely bypassed that physical limitation. Because the interface is inside his brain, the lighting doesn't matter at all anymore. He was finally able to go outside, watch his son win a robotics competition, and get his whole outside world back.
To put that into perspective, combined, these 3 men have used their implants for an astounding 4,900 hours over 670 days of implant time. That's not just a brief lab experiment. They are using them independently at home, integrating them seamlessly into their daily lives. Whether it's Neuralink's direct implant or Synchron's blood vessel backdoor, this space race is driving the technology into everyday reality way faster than anyone predicted. The brain-computer interface is no longer a concept. It is a functioning, life-changing tool.
Section 4. The Future of Nanomedicine.
So where is all this headed? Well, we are looking at a field that's projected to absolutely explode from a $261 billion market to $462 billion. Old medicine was basically an unfocused, systemic carpet bombing strategy that often damaged healthy organs along the way. Modern nanomedicine uses these cleverly engineered microscopic Trojan horses. For example, at Michigan State University, researchers have engineered nanoparticles that act as Trojan horses to actually eat away at dangerous arterial plaque. And drugs like Doxil and Onividase pack harsh cancer medicine inside safe fatty shells that protect delicate tissues, like your heart, only releasing the poison when they finally arrive right at the tumor.
And the science is getting ridiculously precise now. At University College London, researchers have developed nanoparticles that aren't just empty cargo ships. They are the drug themselves. They act like custom-built puzzle pieces, engineered to engage cell receptors, and in lab tests with mice, they resulted in a massive 50 to 60% reduction in Alzheimer's plaque. And it gets even wilder. Rice University has developed what they call nanodrills. These are tiny molecular machines that can literally spin and drill right through the membranes of diseased cells in just 1 to 3 minutes to completely destroy them.
So, we're back to that first question. Would you let a doctor inject robots into your bloodstream?
From DNA nanorobots hunting down tumors, to micro-machines driven by huge magnets, to the intense brain-computer space race, the gap between the movie Fantastic Voyager and our current reality is almost completely closed. The era of the microscopic surgeon is officially here. If you found this explainer as fascinating as I did, hit that subscribe button for AtomNationHQ so you can keep exploring the future with us. Catch you next time.